We have rolled into March, and I'm fired up for several reasons. We're not too far away from the Masters, which will come up in April. Big golf tournament here in Georgia, but I'm really excited about March Madness this year. My wife is an Auburn grad. We cheer for the Auburn Tigers. We're having to be a basketball school now. I don't know what's going on with the football team the last couple of years, but they got a guy on their team that was one of her former students, Walker Kessler. So shout out to Walker and his family. Laura was his fifth grade teacher. He's doing really well. Auburn, I'm hoping, is going to get a number one seed. We'll see what happens. But really, the basketball story the last few days has been about Duke basketball. It seems like it's always Duke basketball. But, Coach, the reason they're always the story is Coach Mike Krzyzewski. He's retiring after 42 years. What a great leader he's been for their program. Maybe he leads in a different way than you do, or thinks maybe differently than a lot of us have thought through the years. This guy is like at a level where he's pushing all the time. 5 national championships, even though they had a heartbreaking loss in his last game at home. Countless conference championships this year, not excluded. I mean, they've won it again. They're getting ready for March Madness and the tournament. It'll be interesting to see how they do these last few weeks. But we're talking about Coach K this week, and I'm really excited about that. I'm going to review his old book, Leading with the Heart, on Thursday. Hope you'll get to check that out. But welcome to Chasing Greatness. I think there's no question when we think about chasing greatness, it's good to look at somebody who has achieved a level of excellence. And honestly, we always say it's not just about us being great, reaching our potential, but we're trying to help others as well. And I think one of the most beautiful things in that game Saturday night, I watched the game. It was not the game, the competition, all that's great, but really the cool thing was all the former players that were there. And I can't imagine the emotion in this guy who knows for 4+ decades he's been investing. And now he has a legacy of all these people who are successful in their family life. They're great husbands and dads and coaches and business people. I mean, there's so much has come out of that. And I read several stories this weekend about all the people that have been impacted by him, and some in positive ways, some in negative ways. We're never going to be perfect as leaders, but Coach K has clearly, he's pushed really hard, and he's helped a lot of people. I'm guessing when it's all said and done in a few weeks, it won't be the trophies that he will remember the most. I know it won't, because I used to be an old basketball coach, and we won some trophies, and thankfully in the places I coached in Texas and Tennessee and even in Georgia, there's some banners hanging in some gyms. And until today, I really hadn't even thought about those banners, but I have thought about those players over and over all the time. Some of them I coached 30+ years ago, and they're very successful now, and I still think about them, still follow them on social media. So shout out to all the former players. You guys are awesome, and I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to hang out with you on your journey early. As I look back on that, it's so cool when you think about some of that. So this last week, I've had a really good week. I got to speak to some companies, and one of the places I was in was down in Pensacola, Florida. I had a chance to hang out down there for a couple of days with Baptist Healthcare. They got a massive organization down there. They're doing some great work in the hospital, and just got a good chance to spend some time with their leaders. And they were talking about engagement. We just had a really good couple days for their annual meeting. It was really cool to get to speak to them and spend time with them. One of the things I like to do when I'm out talking to groups is just have leaders identify questions that they need help with, things they're thinking about, things they're asking. And I wrote down my questions here. I've got them. I'm gonna pull out a couple questions that have surfaced from some of these events that I do, and I think they tie into this idea of Coach K and Duke basketball, because one of the things that's really made them great is they've always had great players. They have had a great leader. They have had great coaches. They have had, I wouldn't say they've had a great facility. It looks like a high school gym if you watch the game. I mean, Cameron is a cool place. I've actually gotten to visit there. It literally is just like going into an old high school, the old wood. I mean, it's the court. It's cool. But they've been so good because they've had great players. And one of the questions that keeps popping up at these events that I do is about recruiting, and not just recruiting, but what do we do when we get people onto our team? So you may be in business, or you may be even a coach. You're looking for players. I think you'll find some helpful stuff here today. It's when at work Monday. So let's jump into a couple of these questions. Here was the first one that they're asking about these, really, what are the best practices of recruiting? And so here was the question: how do I develop a hiring process to build a great team from the beginning? How do we recruit top tier talent when we can't match other people's offers? In other words, you might not be able to pay what somebody else can. Now, there's a couple of things I'd say about this. I think it's a great question, first of all, but top talented people, we've done a bunch of research on this, wrote a bunch of content on it, which you can find at leadeveryday.com. If you're looking for our talent magnet content, Mark Miller wrote a book, and we wrote field guides and quick start guides and all kind of stuff that we have. We do a workshop if you want to, do something in your company. Love to come and hang out with you. But when you think about this idea of top talent, we actually had an opportunity to interview about 7,000 people who were considered top talent. All these organizations we commissioned a study to do this, and what we found was they weren't looking for the most money. Now, what we did find out is, like, A players, B players, C player, everybody has to be paid a fair market wage. So the question when you say, how do we attract people when we can't? How do we attract top people when we can't match somebody else's offer? The research literally shows that people who are top thinkers don't necessarily need to be the highest paid or want to go to work for the highest paid offer. They really want to go somewhere where they can make a difference as much as they can make a living. They do want to make a living. You're not going to attract them again if you're not fair in your wage, but you don't have to overpay top talent. What you do have to do is you have to give them a place. The research shows where they're going to have an engaged leader. They're going to work for somebody that's going to really care about them as a person, not just as an employee. And secondly, the research shows they want a place that's going to help them grow. And I'm guessing all those players who went to Duke did want to be a part of that big, vision that they have of their program. There's some storied programs when you look at recruiting college basketball, college football. And it's pretty easy sell when you say, hey, you can come play here and you can get to the NFL or you can get to the NBA in this case. You can play for championships. You're going to be on TV all the time, exposure. There's some things about that are pretty attractive. But knowing that you're going to have a leader like Coach K in this case, or knowing you're going to have a place that's going to really help you grow as a young man if you were going to play for Duke's men's team, that's pretty attractive to a top level thinker. And so I would just say to the person who asked this question, you want to make sure that you're creating a culture where people can grow. You're creating a culture that's going to do something great. And then ultimately it goes back to you're going to care for that person and who they're going to work for. I was talking to a young leader last week and they were asking me, what should I be looking for? They're about to make a career move. And I said, the first thing I would want to know is who am I going to report to? I think that's a very big question. It didn't even cross my mind how much money am I going to make. Now, I'm not starting out in my career. I get that, but I've been around long enough to know, like, who am I going to report to? And listen to this statistic. According to Inc. magazine, 82% of the time, companies fail to choose the right person for the job. It's incredible when it comes to this recruiting idea. We don't really even have in our mind what we're looking for. And so then we're making excuses. Well, we can't find great people because we don't pay a lot. We really don't even know what we're looking for a lot of times. So I think we have to start with, what are we looking for? Do we have a profile? Has that been created? And then once they get here, how are we going to develop them as a person? How are we going to lead them? Everybody deserves to be well led. And then what kind of vision do we have to let them be a part of something great? That's what they said they wanted. And so that's important. And then it's not only recruiting at Duke or anywhere else or in your company, in your business, but let's get in a little bit here on what do we do to retain top people? Because, the transfer portal is alive and well, it seems like to me, in college football now. Everybody just plays 1 year. If they don't get what they want, they just transfer somewhere else. Your people are the same way. They can leave, basketball players, they usually go 1 year and then they go to the NBA if they're good enough. But if they're going to stay somewhere, what is it that we have to do? And so the question that came through in one of the events I did was, how do we improve loyalty and reduce employee turnover? And I go back to what I said a moment ago. I think it really goes back to the leader. People, I always say it this way: people don't leave organizations; they leave leaders. They they are going to stay engaged if their leader is a good leader who's developing them, cares about them. They don't have to have a perfect leader, but we tell companies all the time, there's nothing worse than your people leaving you and they haven't even told you yet. They're there, they're taking up a spot on the team or their place on the payroll, but their engagement level is so low, and the studies show 37% of people have left a job solely due to poor leadership. Think about the last time you left a job. There's a really good chance that it had something to do with you not being led the way that you maybe should have been. And as I think back to people that I've led, if they left, it might not have been because they hated the job. They didn't hate me. I mean, I'm not like, hopefully people don't hate you in your leadership, but if you're not leading people well, they will not stay. If they're a top talented person. Now, a mediocre person, somebody, they'll just stay. And like I said, they'll leave you and not tell you, which is even worse. According to Gallup, 50% of employees leave their companies because of their direct boss. So I think this idea of recruiting, again, March Madness, basketball week, people are asking me all the time, how do we get more talent? How do we get the right talent, top people? We tell them you don't want acceptable people. You want exceptional people. You want the very best players, the very best employees you can get. It's going to position you to win. Duke has had such an advantage because they've had really great players. We could, if you're a basketball fan, you can think all the way back to Jay Billis in the day, to Jay Williams and Zion Williamson and Grant Hurley. And I mean, I can just name, Christian Laettner, Grant Hill. I mean, so many amazing players that have helped them win. But it's what's happened to them when they've got there. There've been so many 5-star recruits get to these other places and not be developed. And so when you think about your payroll, if you're, again, it's Win at Work Monday here. When you think about your team, do you have the right people around your table? And if you don't, I want to encourage you to go find better people. You need exceptional people to help you do something exceptional. It's up to you. Are you settling for just average talent? And if you think about the people on your team right now, what are you doing to level them up once you get them there? So this is a really great conversation. People are asking everywhere I go, how do we find people? How do we develop them? If you want to really find people and attract them, it's the same thing that's going to help you keep them. You give them an engaged leader. You create leadership at all levels of your organization where everybody's going to be well led. You give people a place to grow, help them get better and improve over time. And the more they grow, the more they're going to help your business grow. And then ultimately, you got to have a vision. You got to be trying to do something. Duke's trying to win basketball games and championships, build men, whatever their vision is. You've got a vision. You're trying to impact your community. You're trying to create a great place to have a job. You've got a vision for what you're trying to do. Chick-fil-A, I talk to them sometimes. They want to be the most caring company in the world. I love that. What is your vision? If you have a big vision, top talented people are attracted to that. You don't have to pay them. You don't have to overpay them to get them. They'd rather be a part of something great than make a greater amount of money most of the time. So these are good questions. I hope they'll help you as you think about this talent thing. If we can help you, love to come do a workshop for your company. If you're owner or your training director, your HR department, you got somebody there. Maybe it's you. Love to hear from you. How can we help you? Comment on this. If you've got some feedback for us, let us know how we can help you. If you've got questions, you say, hey, I'd love to hear you talk about this. We get to hang out with a lot of diverse situation with companies. I mean, it's just so many different industries and verticals that we get to go into. And so we learn a lot there. And if there are things that we can help you with, you got questions about, leave them in the comments. Hope you'll hit the thumbs up button. If you still haven't left a review, I encourage you to do that. Maybe you know somebody who could use a little encouragement. Maybe one of your buddies in another business, they're really struggling to find people. Hopefully a couple things we said today will be helpful to them. All right, we'll see you on Wednesday. I got some more stuff that I think Coach K is going to help us with. Just springing off that as we go here into March Madness. It's Win at Home Wednesday in a couple of days. Love you guys. I'll see you on Wednesday.